Where's the book? Oh my god. I've lost the book. What the heck? Oh. Hello and welcome to the Word is Kingdom on this side of YouTube. I am Princess Adia, aka Adia, and welcome to my channel. Hello. It's been a long time. A very, very long time, a couple months time, that I wasn't expecting to do. If you remember, like, the last video I posted, I talked about how I was so ready, you know, that kind of stuff, to film videos. Then my SD card, my hard drive, lost footage, broke, so I couldn't edit anything. I didn't have any footage. After I got my SD card fixed finally after months, because I had to, like, save up to get this whatever. So then my computer broke while writing a script for a video, so I haven't gotten that fixed. My laptop, I have a desktop, but it's very hard to work on because I'm not used to it working on a desktop, and it strains my eyes, causing me head migraines because the whole neck position thing. So I haven't really been doing any like planning of videos with typing scripts out, because I have a lot of videos that I wanted to plan out to have scripts for. Couldn't do that. Went to film a video today. My main camera that I use, my Canon 8070D, just wasn't working, just wasn't turning on. I am going to take it to the repair shop, obviously, and get it fixed. Also take my laptop to the repair shop so I can start doing videos. There's a lot happening, but I'm filming this video. Thank God I have another camera that I've been like doing vlogging on. So that's what's happening. Hopefully you like the quality of the video. It's not too bad. So today's video is a bit of a video that I have been almost close to a year in the making, because it took me so long to finish this thing. I'm doing a book wrap up on Red, White, and Royal Blue. This lovely book right here. I mean, I would say lovely, but I did not enjoy my time reading this book. This book is by Casey McQuestion. I had a lot of thoughts on this book. There's just a lot. Okay. This book is about the, obviously not real, first son of the first female president of the United States, and the Prince of Wales falling in love. So, yeah. That's what this is about. And it's their trials and tribulations of, like, politics and falling in love, and these people being too higher ups. And, Alex, who's the main character, like, the protagonist, like, the person who narrates the story, he is supposed to also be half Mexican, half white. But we'll get into that. First of all, the only reason I came across this book is because it was being quite recommended on BookTube, and not so much BookTok. I wasn't on, like, TikTok when I really wasn't on TikTok, like, specifically BookTok when I heard about this book. This was a recommendation that I decided to follow from Monica Kim, and I love Monica. She's great, but this book wasn't my favorite. I did rate it, but I haven't given like a full written out review on Goodreads. But I did rate it a 3 out of 5. So here's why. What I did like about this book was the siblings, the relationship between the siblings. Bia and June are like the best. They're really great siblings. They're super supportive, and they also they aren't like lost necessarily in the whole fact that, like, they aren't lost in the identity of their brothers. The sister is very headstrong and not wanting to be really involved in politics. Specifically, June doesn't want to be involved in politics with, even though her family is mainly in politics. Bia is I think it's very interesting to see how again, I don't know if I should say spoilers, yeah. She is, her like, identity of, like, coming from someone who has had an addiction with drugs, and, like, still being a very supportive and loving person and a good person. I feel like sometimes we frame people who have had addictions as these like massive people. Like even specifically like a character I can think of is like Haymitch from Hunger Games. He's a good person, but he's still a mess of a person because he's addicted to drugs and still trying to fix addiction to like alcohol and stuff throughout the books. But it does show a lot of like how much her family is afraid of letting her do anything because she's been addicted to drugs. That's, I think that's interesting that happens in the book, and how much she combats that with like, I am my own person. Just because I was addicted to drugs doesn't mean that I'm a failure in life. It doesn't mean I'm gonna like fall back into habit of doing drugs again, which I think is interesting. Also, how supportive she is of her brother. Then I also liked Henry and Alex's relationship after, like a couple of months, like maybe a month or so after they get into a relationship. There is a rocky bit of part where I'm like, oh, you know, it's okay. I like their relationship towards the end of the book because I feel like they're a lot more solidified, a lot more stronger and strengthened their relationship, and it seems like a very real relationship. I know a lot of people have said that they like the depiction of how these two like 20-something in their 20s, how the stories written about these people in their 20s, how realistic it is. I don't know what it's like to be in my 20s yet. I'm only 19, so I can't speak on that, but they do seem like real people for their like positions and their like titles and roles where they are in the world. So I don't know. I would say yes, they don't seem like very fake people. They do seem like very people who are very into like specifically like classic literature, the ties back to classic literature, but I kind of didn't understand all the ties to classic literature because I'm not a classic literature reader. I didn't really grow up talking about those kind of things in school, so those are things I'm not really connected with. I really don't like reading Shakespeare. It's very confusing to me, especially someone who has ADHD and having a hard time understanding certain things. I have a hard time as it is understanding like our English today. So like English to then is not something that I can easily understand, and it doesn't like, yeah. So I didn't understand that. It was fun to talk about like Virginia Woolf and all those kind of people and how like it impacted them. But for the most part, it kind of went over my head. I don't know. Lastly though, this is my last topic of like what I liked with the story. I do think that the story is well written. Like the writing of the story is very good. Like the way that Alex talks about himself and how he feels, like it's very much well written, but it also does play a part to how like he is a little bit self-centered, a little bit, I would say. I don't think it's a bad thing he's necessarily, well, a little bit, because he's, yeah, whatever. I just think that like the way that it's written is very good. It's very it keeps you on your toes, but that doesn't make up for the things I don't like about the book. So what I didn't like, I guess this kind of plays into the book, even though it's like you're not supposed to like the way he's, but I don't like Alex's behavior towards Henry in the beginning of the book. He is very much a jerk to Henry. When Henry is not acting like that, he's like really just taking every kind of opportunity to like find something not to like about Henry. And I feel like we all have that moment where we just don't like someone for a reason, like for no reason, but we just try to find every single thing they do or some reason to be like, yeah, that's why I don't like them. I do have a person like that I've known in my life that I just don't like them for that reason. I try to make up reasons why I don't like them. But it's to this, with Henry, with Alex, it was just a bit too much. And it felt like a little bit out of place, and it felt like for the kind of person he was, he also is kind of like that with everyone. He's a bit of a jerk to everyone, which I don't like, because I don't like people who think being a jerk is funny. Okay, this is a lot of people who are saying, who have problems with this book, are saying. I just feel that it's very weird to write this story about two people in this very high places in both these very strong countries, England and the US, and like try to make it seem as if they're like their stories are relatable to people. I think that's the biggest thing, is like, this is the first female president, the son of the first female president. That's not happened in the world. And sure, it's great to like escapism and you know, dream about and like be optimistic about things, but it's also hard to do that because the book tries to write a story about a love story in the political world, but doesn't, it's hard to put yourself in that place, because we really only talk about the corruption sort of within with Henry and like the monarchy and stuff like that. Like that's like the most, but it talked about it towards the end once, you know, things happen. And like there's a lot of it's very hard to connect and relate with these characters, because a lot of the things that they're going through aren't necessarily things that people will go through, you know? Because it's like, a lot of people are saying just because something's relatable to some people, it doesn't mean it's realistic. And a book doesn't always have to be realistic, but in the case of like where you're writing about something where it's supposed to be realistic, it's hard. It's kind of hard to do that. Another thing I had a really big problem was with, like, Alex is written to be someone of a person of color, specifically Mexican, coming from Texas. And I feel that that is only brought up as an afterthought, like him being a Mexican and a Mexican American person, but also being white is something that's a kind of an afterthought that comes up in there. And I feel like that there could have been so much more delved into like culture, grandparents, like that, like how that does affect him, his sister, who is someone who's also Mexican American and a woman, like how that affects them, and how that affects like their whole story within like the relationship. That should affect them. But I feel like it's only brought up like 1 or 2 times, specifically when they're talking to Henry's grandmother, the queen. And it's only brought up in that kind of moment where he's like, oh yeah, I feel like she's looking at me, down on me because of my race. But it's like, oh, I forgot that he was even Mexican American in that story, in the book. Like, with them being in political power, like, I feel like they they try to like touch on every topic they could in the political world, and then fail to do that because it's like, these things could have been great. Like, if you focus on one thing that they were really going for, then sure, perfect. It just didn't work with the setting and how, I guess because it is talking about the US and the UK's government, it's specifically the monarchy, and we know how corrupt the US government is and the monarchy is. Like, it's hard to write a story like that and then try to like put a love story in there. And I'm not saying there aren't love stories within these settings, but it's hard to write a story like that and expect for people to be like, yeah, I can ignore everything, you know, all of that. But like, even in this case of like, it's just like, even in such situation, there are things that happen in the book between Alex and Henry within the relationship and within the government because of their relationship. Like, there are a lot of things that happen. They don't have any backlash. There are no consequences. And there's just like, okay, so then what was the purpose of having us go through that if nothing's going to happen? There's no like actual big thing that happens because of what they've done. Like, the whole premise of the book starts out because Henry and Alex were like sort of seen fighting, or Alex did something where he tripped and hurt, so they're gonna make them look like they're friends. I don't necessarily feel like countries would do that. I don't think they would do that. Like, I don't think the US government would care so much about whether or not the first son of the US president was friends with the Prince of Wales. Like, I don't see how that was something, like, I don't see how that was something that's realistic or something that could happen. I also felt like the problems that they were having were quite redundant. They were happening, like, there was, like, essentially it was, like, the same problem happening every, like, 20 or 30 pages or so after, like, the same thing. And it's mostly, like, whether or not they feel comfortable to come out, whether or not, like, it's just, like, these stories relying around, like, whether or not they feel comfortable to come out. Because, again, obviously, we know that people don't just come out one time. They're constantly coming out multiple times within their life. And I don't necessarily have problems with coming out stories. I think the coming out stories that we're having in the world are what needs to change. Because coming out doesn't happen once. Like, it doesn't happen once. It happens all the time. People are constantly coming out to people in their life. But I think that this whole coming out situation, same thing with like Love, Simon, or even what's another one, The Happiest Season. They're coming out for the straight people or the heterosexual people in their life, and not coming out for the fact of like, because it's regular life. It's like this big thing, and it's one culmination of like, I've come out once to my family or the straight people in my life, or for straight people, and now it's over. Like, that doesn't happen, and that's not what happens. And like, coming out stories can work. Like, we could talk about like how The Prom, even though I don't necessarily like the movie, I like the musical a bit better, a lot better. The Prom, the story doesn't necessarily talk about coming out, but it talks about how the repercussions of her coming out affect her. Like, it's after the fact she's come out. Like, I feel like people like want to shit on The Prom because of James Corden or whatever. It's not, they weren't that bad. Like, they weren't as bad as people wanted to make them out to seem. Like, I think that when talking about like The Prom, she comes out, doesn't mean she doesn't stop coming out, but there's an obstacle on her way because other people in her life are making a situation out of her sexuality. It's not because she's made a situation out of her sexuality, other people are. I think that the story is strong in the fact that like, these are regular teen kids within The Prom, like, it's regular teen kids, and they want to do regular teen things, and their adults, the adults in their life, are stopping them because of ridiculous reasons, you know? That's something that's different than what this story is. It's like very focused on coming out and coming out about the relationship, and then there's like this weird thing where like they're being pressured into like, if you're gonna come out with him, it has to be like you guys are gonna be together forever. And this is like literally both of their like first this is Alex's first like relationship with someone of the same sex as him, and this is Henry's like first like serious relationship with someone, and they're like being pressured into being like, this is gonna be my only relationship with a person. Like, it's very weird. Like, it's a very weird situation they're being put in, and it made me uncomfortable in the book with reading it. It made me very angry, and like how everyone, like Alex and Henry, were like, oh yeah, it's understandable, it's okay. Like, it's not okay. If you want to believe they're gonna be together forever, sure, but that's not the case with like relationships. Another thing was that like, this book could have been a lot shorter. I'm sorry. Like, this book was like 500 pages long, I think. How long was this book? I think it's like 540 something. Okay, hello, editing Adia here. I'm just popping in to say I want to change what I was saying in the video. I don't think the book was like long. Like, page-wise, it was 400 pages. I just think that because of my ADHD and how like the problems were happening over and over again, the story felt like it was dragging on necessarily, and I felt like had some of the book been like, some of the stuff had been cut out of the book, it wouldn't have probably felt like that to me, but I don't know. I also did learn that Case in Question is a fellow ADHDer, so it's 418 pages. It's 400 pages long. I feel like this book could have been wrapped up at about like maybe around the 350 mark. Like, we could have cut a couple pages out. I feel like there's just a lot of redundancies happening with the problems that they were facing, but also in the same fact of like, they should definitely there are just also another thing is like, there's just one point in time where there's like a chunk of the book where many sex scenes, and it's like, I don't care about, like, I don't have a problem with the sex scenes. Again, I have read Wattpad, I have read books, regular books that do have sex scenes, and you know, sex scenes don't necessarily need to be impactful in a story because it's a sex scene, but like, there are way too many. Like, it got to the point where they were like just only hooking up. Also, there were just way too many. Like, you just way too many. I guess because of the culture with like BL stories, or just in general with like male loving male relationships that are represented in media, it's very weird to see me being a cis woman that I don't want to feel like I'm perving on a relationship that shouldn't be. I'm back because again back to the thing. It sounds like I'm like disgusted with the fact that like, you know, gay men have sex or gay people have sex. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, it just felt like it was overly done. I don't really care if they're talking about having sex. People have sex. I just was like, it's bordering on. It's a bit too much. That's what it's bordering on. It's like bordering on. It's like there's too much of it in this book for this right now. Like, can we spread it out a little bit? I think another thing that I had brought up to a friend of mine when I was reading this book is just like, who was writing the story, and I'm not gonna say like, oh, like, I guess I can, because I think coming from someone who is a person of color, who is black, and we've had issues, like, there is a huge chunk in time of like film and media where it's called black exploitation films, where like they were black films primarily of black people about black stories, but written by white people, and the stories are primarily about gangs, drugs, gangsta movies, like those kind of things. It's like, is it right for someone who doesn't identify as the identities in the story to write a book, write the story, make the story? And I don't necessarily think that's something that someone can do. I'm not saying this person isn't queer. You can be queer and write a story, but as we know, that there are very different experiences with different queer identities. A lesbian is not going to have the same experience as a bisexual woman or a pansexual woman, or a lesbian who is a cis woman is not going to have the same experiences as a non-binary lesbian. Like, a gay man isn't going to have necessarily the same experience as a bisexual man or a pansexual man or a non-binary gay person. Like, the experiences are different. Day 2 of me editing this video. Hello. Ignore the band-aid on my face. So, I'd like to clarify some things. I think it got a little bit muddled. Also, me doing some research. I do know that Casey McQuiston is non-binary and bisexual. Understand that. From my understanding and from the research I've done, I don't think they are Latinx or anything to do with like being Hispanic, Latinx, anything like that. But the problem I had is what I'm saying is that there's no intersectionalism in this story, and I think that's the problem with what I had, was that like him being a Mexican American bisexual man, those things should intersect. There are nuances about his identity that should intersect, and because of the person writing this story who doesn't necessarily identify with some of the things like being a man and being Mexican, they can't write about it. The author Casey McQuiston cannot write about it because they don't know what those nuances are. They don't know how that affects or intersects with each other. Like, had it been written from like Henry's point of view, could have been totally different, because Henry is a gay man, white gay man. Like, it's a lot more easy to write about that, because like that part of life and that identity is so much more seen and so much more understood than necessarily a bisexual Mexican man. That's all I mean. There's no intersectionality in this book where it should be. I don't think that the book is bad. I just think that not everyone can write a story about anyone's identity, and someone who is black and understands that you just can't. I wouldn't go and ask to write Mulan. I don't know what that experience is like. There are many little things that are part of that culture that I don't know about. I don't think it's a bad read. I just think the book was just also the book was very way too long for me. And I don't know if it's because of my ADHD that I just couldn't handle how long this book is. It felt a lot longer than it actually was. And like, it just felt very, very long. Very long. I was like, again, like, it took me almost a year to finish this book. So, like, I don't know why. It just felt very long. I don't know how many other people who, like, maybe have ADHD felt this way when they read this book, but, like, it took me a very long time to read this book, and this book put me in a reading slump. A lot of people were, like, saying, like, oh, this book is a great book to take out of a reading slump. This book put me into a reading slump because I went 9 months without reading a book, because 9 to 10 months or something like that without reading anything, because I was stuck on this book. I think it was a good book. I enjoyed it for the most part, but there's just things I just wasn't my favorite about this book. That is my review of this book. Hopefully, people don't come for me online for this, come for me for my thoughts on this book. But I gave it a 3 out of 5 on Goodreads. Okay, so that is the end of this video. I feel like I might be doing some more reading wrap-ups. I don't want to do a bunch because I feel like every time I read a book I don't want to, like, do a wrap-up for it, but this book, I had a lot of thoughts on this book, so I wanted to do a wrap-up about it. But yeah, I am so happy to be back. I'm so happy to start making videos again, and I'm so happy to be doing makeup again. It's like, just a lot of things. I also put on dark eyeliner today, which is something I've been trying to stray away from, but I had brown eyeliner, so I'm like, let's just jump for it, because my other eyeliner wasn't working. But, like, I look good. And Mom said I look like a cartoon character, which I do think I do. So, thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys in the next video.